Ready to go? Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the August 18th meeting of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors. We will call this meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will start this meeting with a presentation to receive a presentation on the CalRec Vision project regarding the joint strategy for sustainable outdoor recreation and wildfire resilience and the possibility of adopting the strategy. This is brought forward by the County Administrative Office.
Thank you, Chair. There should be an individual online who will provide the presentation to the board.
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
How are you? How's everybody doing?
Good. Hold on one moment. We're going to try to get your volume up.
Okay.
Is it good? Okay.
Testing.
Thank
Testing.
you. We're ready.
Good morning, board members and staff. Thank you very much for taking a little time to consider this opportunity. My name is John Wentworth. I live down in Mammoth Lakes, and we've been working with the Wildfire Task Force for a couple of years now. It's something that may be of interest to Trinity County. This is the document in question published by the California Wildfire Task Force. This is California's Joint Strategy for Sustainable Outdoor Recreation and Wildfire Resilience. And I'll give you a little bit of background on myself and how all this came to be. I live, as I mentioned, down here in Mammoth Lakes. I'm a town council member, but I'm also the CEO of the Mammoth Lakes Trails and Public Access Foundation. We pulled together a trail system down here in Mammoth Lakes. And I'm pretty confident that the kind of jurisdictional spaghetti that we've seen down here, you guys see up there in Trinity. And so pulling together a trail system is not so much building a whole lot of new trails and infrastructure, but taking all the federal opportunities and organizing them in such a way that visitors, locals, residents can enjoy these things in a way that's easy to understand and takes a lot of the guesswork out of where you're going and what you're going to run into when you get out there. So we pulled together this trail system back. It was ribbon cut back in 2012. Out of that experience, we came to realize that there really is kind of a gap between communities and all of us who are working in the outdoor recreation world, relying on that for economic activity, for tourism, those kinds of things. That there's a real disconnect between the state and rural communities like ours. We pulled together something called the CalRec Vision, which is essentially a white paper, and we put this together during COVID. I'm not sure if you were being overwhelmed the way that we were, but we were certainly being overwhelmed by thousands and thousands of folks trying to escape the pandemic. And it really emphasized the need to try to get the state lined up with the needs and the interests of rural communities that look to outdoor recreation tourism as being significant economic drivers. So we put this white paper together. It's not a long document, but it's focused and it's to the point, identifying opportunities for state leadership to build collaborative capacity and also to really elevate the California's regional program at the time, which was kind of nascent. So about the time we published this document, the Wildfire Task Force, the state's Wildfire Task Force, was getting ready to start developing strategies coming out of their comprehensive plan. And one of the goals in the action plan for the Wildfire Task Force was to develop a joint strategy to improve access to sustainable recreation with a larger lens on this of the wildfire context that the task force is working in. So we got a call from a guy named Patrick Wright, who is now the director of the Wildfire Task Force. He used to run the Tahoe Conservancy up in Tahoe, and said, would you be willing to put together a working group to develop and produce this joint strategy? And we said, yes, of course he would. That sounds like a really interesting opportunity. So we assembled a key working group to put this document together. Folks on the key working group included federal agencies, BLM, Forest Service, NOAA, LA County Parks, Sierra Nevada Conservancy, the Forest Service, just a good collection of really good, solid practitioners in this arena. And we just got to work. It took us about a year, about 11 meetings of this working group. A lot of documents were reviewed, a lot of outreach to communities that either been affected by wildfire, were in the recreation world, surveys, things like that, tribal outreach. We did all those kinds of things during that period. And we presented this to the Wildfire Task Force in 2022. This was right as COVID was theoretically winding down. And the Forest Service was, in their intelligence, thought that this was a worthy effort and honored this effort as the Partnership of the Year. This is from Region 5 back in 2022. So that was nice. And why wouldn't they do that? If you look at the state of California, as we all know, over half of the state of California is managed by the federal government out of Washington, D.C., and the iconic landscapes, of which Trinity certainly has its share, live in the imagination of people all over the world who come to visit California, local residents who live here, love living here. This is what really defines in many ways what California is in the imaginations of so many people. So the challenge with this joint strategy was to try to find a new strategic approach at that intersection of sustainable outdoor recreation and wildfire resilience. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what's in the document. There are 4 goals with a whole number of key actions. And none of this is prescriptive. It's designed to be a menu of opportunities for jurisdictions that adopt it, given the idiosyncrasies of their jurisdiction, where they live, what the geography is like, what the forests are like, what the recreation economy is like, to find those opportunities to bring into their jurisdiction they're going to work the best for them. So there's no mandate associated with this. The first goal is to integrate forest health and sustainable outdoor recreation. There are 12 key actions associated with that goal. The second goal is to advance inclusion and access for all throughout California, certainly a value of all of us living here in California. 7 key actions associated with that one. Promote the health and well-being of all Californians through outdoor recreation. As I'm sure we're all aware, when we have catastrophic fires in our forests, we aren't the only ones affected. The smoke, the effects of these wildfires gets into urban areas, it gets all over the place, it goes all the way across the country. It affects a lot of people, and it's important to be thinking about kind of the landscape, the larger geography that these wildfires can affect. And finally, the 4th goal, to support economies that enhance sustainable outdoor recreation. Those economies, those places that are in the outdoor recreation business and tourism business to some degree, how do we support those communities that are involved in that kind of activity? As I mentioned, there are key actions. So there's 31 different key actions associated with each of those goals. It's all about identifying which of these key actions, which of these goals fit the jurisdiction that adopts it, and hopefully find a way to put these things to use as we all try to mitigate the threat and the effects of wildfire as we go forward. So we got finished with the joint strategy with the Wildfire Task Force. The state published it, which was great. And we sat around and kind of waited for, well, what's the implementation program going to be? What is the state? What are the federal partners? How are you guys going to roll this thing out and do something with it? And we waited and waited, and nothing seemed to be happening. So we kind of took it upon ourselves to at least take an initial step to introduce the joint strategy to counties and jurisdictions across the state, and to provide a pretty basic service to see if folks are interested, to help them get it adopted, and to hopefully help with some follow-up as they start looking to implement these things. So we put together this program for adoption. As I think you all know, the next meeting of the Wildfire Task Force is coming up first week of October up in Humboldt County. Hope to see some of you there. But this is a great opportunity to start getting counties, regions, jurisdictions within the geography, what's happening with the task force, to see these things get adopted. Where I live down here in the Eastern Sierra, we have about 30,000 residents, but we get about 7 million visitors a year. So being able to communicate to that visitor audience the threat of wildfire, how to be ignition aware, not to be starting things, but also to serve as an interpretive place for folks to see this is how you can do intelligent fuel management, fuel treatment work that doesn't overwhelm your community, doesn't overwhelm your economy, doesn't overwhelm the quality of life for people living there. So just as an example of some of the things we've done down here, I go back to the trail system. And if you can see this map, this is all these different colored sections here. These are the lots, the segments that are identified by a great nonprofit we have working down here called the White Bark Institute, that has really taken the fuels treatment, the fuels mitigation program by the rains. And a lot of this stuff is now being treated, it's being thinned, so to be proactive in advance of the threat of wildfire. And if you can see on this slide, a lot of the lines here, these are the roads, the trails, the campgrounds, the parking areas, the bathrooms, the restrooms, all of that infrastructure that makes it desirable for folks to come up here and visit. It drives a lot of our economic activity, certainly in the non-snow months. So it's a big part of who we are and what we do. The town, we adopted the joint strategy about a year and a half ago. And we immediately said, well, what can we do with our recreation infrastructure? What have we got that we can start rolling this into a wildfire prevention and mitigation program? So this is a quick look at some of the multi-use paths we have here in town. And we started to find a way to start turning these things into fuel breaks. How can we use this infrastructure, A, to serve as fuel breaks, but also provide easy access for firefighters and folks who may be out there fighting a brush fire, fighting a fire if it comes our way. And this program has really gotten enhanced over the last year working with White Bark. There are now a lot of piles of trees that have been cut and have been prepared for something other than a destiny as a wildfire. But you can see these are our ball fields, our little park outside of town. The piles are there. It increases the level of the awareness of safety in the community that the threat is being mitigated at least somewhat. The outdoor recreation economy is not being affected. Folks are still coming. They're still going to campgrounds. The work we've done in such a way is the piles are there. The fuel is being mitigated and the threat of the wildfire is being decreased, but it's not affecting how we're doing things and how it's not affecting our economy. Quality of life for folks who live here, the paths are still open, the trails are still open. We're doing this in a really coordinated fashion. And probably most importantly, the culture of Mammoth Lakes and other small towns in the Sierra that are gateways to wilderness areas and national forests and all that kind of stuff. This is all working well together. It's all being well integrated as part of a coherent program. And this is, we all know what happened in Spokane a couple of weeks ago. This is the kind of thing where we all have to do whatever we can to take any step to bring whatever tools we can to bear to be proactive in the threat and these very real threats of wildfire that are threatening all of our communities. What's been interesting about this also, it opens up opportunities for your audience and for locals to understand the kind of work that's being done, certainly how to enhance things like your wildfire protection plan, to integrate that into that as people are making decisions and choices about, okay, what kind of fuels work do we want to do? How can we bring in different assets to help with that work? This is the kind of thing that helps connect some dots and spark a little creativity about how you could use a variety of different assets to make this happen. And as mentioned, we've pulled together, it's been adopted by a number of different jurisdictions, but we provide draft agenda text, the strategy documents. There's also a map here, which I'll show you in a second. So this is where we're at as of this morning. These are the jurisdictions that have adopted so far. Truckee just adopted last week. We've got a Wildfire Alliance down here that's getting ready to get teed up for some money, perhaps from Prop 4 out of the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. They've adopted it. You can see a number of other counties and jurisdictions have gotten online. Our list of candidates, you guys are obviously up this morning for whatever decision, whatever direction you'd like to go. But we're also talking with the Redwood Region Economic Development Commission. That's coming up, I think, next week. Napa County, Mariposa County, talking with them tomorrow morning. So there's a certain momentum behind this now. There's no cost to this. It's not a mandate. It's not a mandatory thing that anybody has to do, but it's a really nice set of tools to connect dots and really encourage creative thinking about how to use all the assets we have to mitigate and get in front of wildfire threats. So I'll leave it there for the moment. And Madam Chair, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Do we have any questions from members of the board?
Yes. So John, thank you very much for this. Sitting on the Sierra Nevada Conservancy Board, I've been exposed to this and from that perspective, and so it's great to see it this way. Would you just clarify more specifically for the supervisors what it is that you would hope that this board would consider doing in direction to staff today?
Thank you, Rick. Great to see you again. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks when you come down to Mono County. I think that the ask would be for the board to consider adopting the document, the joint strategy, as an advisory document. As I mentioned, there's no mandate, there's no financial burden, there's no legal burden. But to adopt it in such a way to inform whatever efforts the county and your partners are taking on for wildfire mitigation and just work in the wildfire arena to be proactive in the threat of wildfires. There are a number of those key actions in there that include not just before a fire, but during a fire. It's a good thing to have the GIS data for your county, for your region up to date. So for the incident command folks can know where those critical economic assets exist so they don't get compromised during the course of a fire. And then should anybody be so unfortunate to have to go through a wildfire, recommendations for recovery and things you can get ready to do to bring your economy, bring your communities back. I know that's a very tall order. Certainly down here in Mammoth and other communities, we're doing everything we can to make sure that that situation never happens. But the ask would be, the recommendation would be to adopt it as an advisory document, share it with your staff, with folks who are working in your recreation departments, who are working on your wildfire mitigation efforts as a way to spark creative thinking and to find ways to move this forward. There may be opportunities through the Department of Conservation, through the SNC, to be able to access Prop 4 funds to do some of this work. There is no money in California right now for recreation, just as a straight up proposition. But as wildfire gets reframed as part of a climate resilience strategy and the recreation assets can be part of that, that can be an opportunity to leverage and access some funding for these projects.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further comments? Supervisor Cobb?
Yeah, John, thank you for your work. 11 meetings over a year is not an easy lift, and what you have produced is clearly substantial, and the folks that are joining are evidence that others have read it and appreciate what's going on here. Could we go back to the slide that shows those that have adopted it already?
Sure.
Oh, you're controlling it. Okay, I was looking at our
Yeah.
clerk and asking her to do that. I guess what comes to mind is the ways by which you feel if Trinity were to also participate in this way, what are the ways that the counties then would work together? Or beyond the counties, does this end up informing the forest of various practices or objectives, or something that then start to become sort of a common way of thinking or approaching things? Like what's the goal more regionally?
Excellent question. So the regional goal for all the regions is to start to build a community of practice, is to start to identify, those counties, those jurisdictions that have adopted it. Okay, well, how are you using it? How are you putting it to work? The question about the forests and the federal land managers is really important because it's obviously really important for communities, for counties, for incorporated towns, whoever, to be able to work with a federal partner to say, hi, these are our critical assets. These are things that are really important to us locally. How can we integrate these into your fuel treatment programs for the work you may be doing that they may be coming from the federal side? It becomes the glue to start marrying, putting these partners together. The original goal for this was to produce a playbook of best practices, of things that the various jurisdictions are doing. We haven't found a financial resource yet to do that. I will say that the next iteration of the Wildfire Task Force action plan, the comment period just closed last week, is to implement this joint strategy. And I've had some conversations about that. Well, great, we're getting it this far to get people to adopt it and buy into it. Everybody's going to need some resources to actually do the implementation work. A lot of it can start initially. But those would be the two things I'd really look at. Establishing a community of practice in regions and amongst partners, but also giving a very important set of tools to deal with federal agencies who are managing the landscape and are managing the forest.
Okay, thank you for that. And then just one more point of clarity that I need. Who you are, my mind is going to the governor's wildfire task force. Is this that, or is this a separate entity?
No, this is the governor's wildfire task force.
Okay.
So this is, for those of you, I know there are varying degrees of familiarity with that, but they had in that original plan, I think about 90 or so key actions the goals that they wanted to get strategies produced from that original plan. I think to date they've only produced 4 or 5, of which this is one of them. So there are 4 or 5 published joint strategies at this point. This is one of them, but this is a state published document. This is a state effort. I'll add as an editorial note, this is the only document that we're aware of that's actually specifically focused on sustainable outdoor recreation at all in the state of California. I know we've heard about the Outdoors for All program and things like that. That's pretty kind of state parks focused. But this is the only document that I'm aware of, that I think anybody's aware of, that is actually looking at rural landscapes, WUIs, where outdoor recreation and tourism and the threat of wildfires really overlap.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that clarity.
Sure.
Do we have further questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for bringing this before us. Would we like to have this on a future agenda item for adoption, or?
I would definitely like
I
to see
would,
that.
yes, thank you.
I'd like to see it on another agenda and go over it a little bit more in depth.
So we have consensus that we would like to have this on a future agenda item for potential adoption by the Board of Supervisors. Is that the appropriate action?
Yeah, I can continue to work with John and we'll get the appropriate documents together and have a county matters item on a future agenda.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And as you've heard, we're going to agree to have this on a future agenda item
Mhm.
for potential adoption. So
I-
thank you.
I would
Oh.
request that we can see the more in-depth documents before it's just on the agenda packet, so there's more time to look at it, please.
Yeah, we'll share. We've got all that stuff. I can share with your CAO, and I'm sure you can share that with everybody.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, if you look in some of the links that are provided in John's presentation and are in the presentation, the staff report for this, that there's links to all those, the actual joint policy document, the actual documents that he's talking about.
Okay, perfect, then we have what
So
we
it's
need.
all very available.
Okay.
They have a pretty good website that has all the documents on there, kind of the history of the program, why they're advocating for it, and how we would go about adopting such policy.
Thank you. That'd be good homework to make sure that this marries well with all of the efforts that have already been underway and are underway in our county right now with our highly active natural resource community.
Agreed.
Okay, we'll close that item. We'll now move on to,
Thank you very much.
thank
John.
you. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We will now enter into public comment. This is a time for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and your address and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. I see we have public comment in the room. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On the way up here, I was thinking of how the county could save money. When you were talking about the T-Mobile 5G tower at Loudon Park, I haven't met one person who wants it there. So instead of going through all the process of doing all the public meetings and everything else, you should just say you need to find another location to do it. I talked to Tim Saxon about it, and the thing from T-Mobile, they said that it was going to help with emergency services. And his statement to me was, how? It's not going to help them with emergency services. Weaverville has coverage. He said the only way that could help would have a tower in Douglas City or Junction City. So, and if you do a deep dive on 5G, you'll find out that it is harmful to children. And it's within an area where children are. So you guys have the right to say that, no, you're not going to put it there. And personally, I think you should take the time to do that and say, find another location. Okay?
Thank you. Do we have any further public comment in the room?
Morning,
Okay.
board members. Scott White, Lewiston Road. I've spent a ton of time on the draft general plan, the community plans, and the draft environmental impact report. And there's some big issues that I don't understand. The first is the community plans. Lewiston, Trinity Center, Weaverville. 3 community plans. Cannabis is mentioned 0 times in those community plans. Overwhelming issue for the past decade. Huge discussion, not mentioned once. All the opt-out areas in the county are in those districts, not mentioned once. Supervisor Lutweiler and Cox, these are your jurisdictions. How can we have community plans being considered that don't mention cannabis once? The biggest issue in the last decade, our vision for the future. How are we going to guide policies, decisions here to guide future decisions? Not once. This is the #1 topic while I was out on the campaign trail that came up across those districts, Weaverville, Trinity Center, and Lewiston. Not one word in the community plans about those. Let's turn the corner. Post Mountain. Cannabis is mentioned once briefly in the introduction, but there's no goals or policies or anything in there. The Hmong community there, they want to grow cannabis. They're working very, very hard to come into compliance and follow the rules of the county. They have nothing in their community plan that supports their interests or efforts. I just don't understand what are the community plans for if they don't touch on the #1 issue that the county has faced? They are the general plan. They're talked about in a subservient fashion. Under the law, they are the general plan. Program LU2, update the community plans for cannabis. They're open right now. We're going to defer that to the future? That's insane. They're open right now. How come they're not addressing cannabis now? We're rolling that over. You're deferring guidance that we need now into the future. This also calls to update the community plans to comply with new zoning and cannabis rules. That's wrong. That's against the law. The policy document is the community plan and the general plan. You can't hold it accountable to zoning and the cannabis ordinance, which is a program. That's what your policy and your program and the general plan says right now. You're holding the policy document subservient to the implementation tools. That's against the law. The program is backwards. We need policy guidance now. Why don't folks around the county trust the board? Well, you told them at the start, cannabis is all settled. We're not going to do anything or change anything. Programs LU2 and LU3, everything can and likely will change. Everybody in the county should be upset with this draft general plan and draft EIR. No matter where you stand on cannabis, this so-called plan is terrible. We're deferring things into the future to inappropriate things. How's the Planning Commission going to act when they have no guidance in their policy documents? I asked before, and I'm going to ask again, please pull this back. Stop where we're at, fix the plans, then revise, and then do the environmental impact report. Thank you.
Is there any further public comment in the room?
Good morning, Chair, Supervisors, Lisa Wright, Lewiston. Certainly disappointed we don't have an agenda item regarding this draft EIR. I'm going to continue my review of this, and I want to focus on one very basic question. How did the land use plan the county proposes to adopt become the development scenario that was actually modeled in the EIR? Now, I know this gets really technical, and it's easy to be like, oh, our staff's handling it. Everything is okay, and you might be being reassured. It's not okay. All right, there are very many issues. The draft EIR assumes 7,420 additional residents and 902 additional housing units through 2050. It then uses 902 mid-rise apartments, more than 10.5 million square feet of office development, more than 6.2 million square feet of retail, and 137,000 square feet of industrial development in its air quality monitoring. But the EIR does not show the calculation connecting those numbers to the proposed general plan. Land use map, acreage by designation, residential densities, FARs, existing development or realistic development constraints. In fact, the FARs, F-A-R-S acronym, is shown as 0.35 for industrial development in one calculation, and in the EIR, it's 3.5 when it's looking at industrial development. That's significant. Those are major errors. But we know this kind of analysis was possible because the county's own certified housing element already uses parcel level acreage, proposed general plan designations, maximum density, maximum capacity, and realistic capacity to evaluate housing sites. The June 2026 safety element also uses future general plan land use GIS data to calculate the acreage of individual land use designations within very high fire hazard severity zones. So the underlying question is not whether the county has the ability to perform a land-based capacity analysis. It clearly does. You did it in elements. The question is, where's the analytical bridge between the general plan we are adopting and the gross scenario the DEIR actually evaluated? That matters because those same assumptions feed air quality, VMT, traffic noise, utilities, wildfire, and cumulative impact conclusions. I'm asking the board to have this issue addressed while the DER is still under public review, and if necessary, to schedule an agendized discussion before the general plan and EIR advance towards certification and adoption. We have an opportunity now. It's the public review time, and I don't want this board to look aside and just leave it to the consultants. It's not being done correctly. I'm going to do a second comment too this afternoon. It's going to be it's very dense. This is very technical information, but it's critical to getting this right. It's not right. There are major errors and inconsistencies that are not being addressed. So please bring it back to the board. You're the decision makers. Bring it back to the public for additional input. Thank you.
Is there any further public comment in the room? Seeing none, is there any online?
Ben?
Good morning. Ben Kellogg, Weaverville. I'm just wondering, and I think many of us are, as I talk to people around town and around the county, is what is the county's plan for revitalizing this county? Because I think we're all tired of going through the budget process where services are cut, and then we're told, well, by supervisors on the podium, well, we need to raise taxes if you all want services to be put back where they're supposed to be. Now we're hearing that, in District 3, that the fairgrounds and the fair is in trouble. And that from the readout that I saw from that meeting, the supervisor for District 3 is saying, well, maybe we have to raise taxes in order to save that. Okay, so where's the plan for that? Because we had a citizens group bring a sales tax initiative to save parts of services that the county took away and that the people really wanted. The animal shelter, the library, and the volunteer fire department. And what did the county do? They came in. Our District 1 supervisor said, do not vote for this. We do not want this to be approved by the fire chiefs. So you all are sort of talking out of both sides of your mouth at this point in time. You say, okay, we have to raise taxes. And then when someone puts something towards that, you guys kill it. So I would love to see one of you stand up and say, and direct staff, we want a sales tax initiative on the ballot to restore 100% of the services that have been taken away over the last, decade at least? And let us vote on it. Stop the smoke and mirrors, the talking games of, well, if you want it, then we have to do a tax. So do a tax. Let's do it and see if it passes. If not, stop talking about it. Stop blaming your constituents for all this because you're not putting a plan forward. And we voted you all in to do exactly what I'm asking you all to do. Thank you.
Is there further public comment online?
There are no other raised hands.
Okay, thank you. We will now close public comment. We will ask for any reports from department heads. Do we have any department heads in the room? Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Liz Hamilton, Health and Human Services Agency Director. I wanted to provide two updates today from our Health Services branch of our department. One, I just want to give an acknowledgement and appreciation to our team led by Kirsten Ford in submitting our application for accreditation for public health. That was done a week ago, and we're in a 90-day review period. But what this does for our public health department, should we be approved and become accredited, we are measuring ourselves against a national standard for excellence. And in holding ourselves to those performance measures, it's just strengthening accountability, strengthening our workforce, better rapid response for the programs within public health, and a better positioning, competitive positioning for funding. And so just a shout out to that team. This was no small lift. This has been 5 years plus in the making to be application ready, combing through absolutely everything in our service delivery and policies and procedures and just workflow. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that. And then I wanted to talk about the opioid settlement funds that, as you recall, and probably for the public's benefit as well, California joined years ago in a class action lawsuit against several pharmaceutical companies, and Trinity County participated within California. And as those awards settle out, we bring those funds in, and then our opioid coalition has been tasked with how do we look at the rules and how that money is to be spent, and how do we have the best community impact for disrupting what we're all aware of, an opioid epidemic that has just ravished our county and many others like us. And so back in February of this year, our opioid coalition, which is many, many partners in including our healthcare community, they did a needs assessment, and they found 4 funding priorities that they established, which are harm reduction, prevention and early intervention, treatment access, and recovery supports. They submitted to the public an RFP, a request for proposal, that went live from early May to early June, and we had 5 submissions, and 4 of those were granted. We had a subcommittee that met and scored those applications to the RFP requirements. And on consent calendar today is the 4 that were approved, and we're seeking your approval to disperse funds. So it's beyond just our department intervening. It is asking for community support in a community issue. And those awards are presented in the agenda today, 3 of which are focused on prevention, really in the youth space, which I think is needed. Total awards of around $250,000, just under $250,000 between these 4 entities. And then one is one of our newer local nonprofits in town, Tri-County Community Action, to help. They are offering to help with rides to medically assisted treatment, which for those persons who are seeking that treatment, it is a commitment to go for their recovery. And that could be 5 days a week that they're traveling either to Humboldt or Shasta County for that treatment because it is not local. And so having ride share to ensure that people get to those appointments is critical. So we are happy to support. We will have further rounds of this will be for this fiscal year. The Opioid Coalition will continue to assess how often we put out for community involvement in this and helping us kind of combat this issue. So stay tuned for further rounds. We had an overall award. They've trickled in as they settle, but 1.2 million in total so far to date. And we also use that internally to substance use disorder services to send people to treatment as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on that, but just excited for the good work that is happening in the community partnerships in our health services space. So end of report.
Thank you very much. Did anyone have any questions? No? you. Is there any further department heads in the room? Seeing none, are there any online? Seeing none, I'll remind the community that department head reports can be found on their individual websites within the county forum there. Now we'll have a report from our county administrative officer. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Chair. Thank you. The proposed FY 26-27 budget is on track for the budget being a budget book. Sorry about that. Budget book being published on September 8th. Department budget memos are due this week, and then we're finalizing all the budget unit numbers and going through reviews. The board previously approved a contract for the recruitment videos, and staff and contractor have completed the video production phase of that. There's been some draft videos that have been shared. On the next meeting, September 1st, we're going to officially launch those videos. We'll show one of them in here and then explain to the board and the public, how those are going to be used and where they're going to be sat for such viewing. So pretty excited about that. The draft videos are pretty neat. Hopefully they'll be well received from potential future employees, hopefully. Just for your information and the public's, there's a 9/11 remembrance event in the very initial planning stages in coordination with the Forest Service, the volunteer fire departments, and the county. More information will be out soon as far as the specific location and time, but plan on, relatively early around, probably 9-ish or so on September 11th. That morning, we'll do a remembrance ceremony. And that's all I've got for now.
Thank you. We will now hear our reports out from members of the board. We will start with Supervisor Gogan.
Yes. Last week, we just had some comments on the fairgrounds. So I met with Michael Thompson and Margie Watkins about the state of affairs of the Trinity County Fair. After that meeting, I called a kind of an emergency town hall that specifically was to go over issues with the Trinity County Fair in Hayfork. And we came up with some good ideas. We had about 60, 70 participants at the meeting. It was very positive. A lot of good things came out of there. They are having a meeting on the 20th, Thursday evening. That will be a joint Fairgrounds Commission board meeting and public meeting. And I would imagine that they will get better attendance than I did, which will be good. We're trying to reimagine the fair moving forward and what we can do as far as dates and just to get it back on track, get it staffed. I think there were short 2 board members. I may have that filled. So that will give them a complete board for now. One of the person who spoke on the public comment there said that the supervisor from District 3 put forward a tax to the people for the fair. That is not true. If there is any tax associated with the fair, it'll be put forward by a citizen, not this board, and it will be a tax specifically to help the fair, just like the tax that passed to help the Greater Hayfork Community Parks Association. So we do not have any tax moving forward as a board for the fairgrounds. So that was taken out of context. I'm not sure how, but it was. Also, as far as the community plan, District 5 was added on, as was Coffee Creek, to the community plans, and we did do a lot of work with District 5 as far as acreage, size of grow site. We put a lot of work into that to make that area work for the people that live there and cultivate there. and it was successful. About 2 or 3 months ago, there was 30 or 40 of them here. We addressed that. And so there has been a lot of talk about District 5 and the cannabis situation. So I just wanted to get that clear. And I think it's clear to the community up there moving forward what their guidelines are as far as things in Post Mountain and District 5. That is it for me. And I just want to let everybody know that they should, if they have any input, the Trinity County Fair is a Trinity County Fair, although it is held in Hayfork. It is a countywide fair, and it's not just a Hayfork fair. So anybody who wants to attend the meeting on Thursday night, 6 o'clock, it would be greatly appreciated. There's going to be a lot of new ideas come forward. And hopefully we can get that kind of reimagined and built back up to the way it was prior to the last couple of years. Thank you.
Supervisor Gogan and Chair, if I could,
Yes.
you be advised that your Fair Board president may be being sent to Alaska to investigate a fire. So I'm sure that you can move forward anyway, but it may change your dynamic and your planning around that if you just want you to be aware. He isn't certain yet if they are sending him, but it's a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I had heard
Supervisor-
rumors, but I wasn't sure.
Not a rumor.
Supervisor Weiler?
Yes. For Nortec, I participated in another executive committee meeting. I was missed yesterday's hiring committee meeting since I was traveling back from the Midwest. And this hiring committee is focused on a new executive director for Nortec, which is the regional workforce development organization. We already have a strong number of candidates. It's been vetted down to a handful that will be interviewed here in the next weeks. So that's moving forward. On the jail health, we've discussed before the amazing work that this group has been doing, collaborating across departments and finding ways to bring millions of dollars into the county that would otherwise have come out of the general fund to take care of some aspects of jail health. And I met with members of staff to discuss next steps about a new jail health hub that would allow them to enhance their tracking as well as management access to information and oversight. So that is moving forward, and I'll be following up with them next week. The Women Entrepreneurs Initiative that we've talked about before, that site is now live. We have, at least as of yesterday, I didn't look this morning, 131 nominees. And we're basically reaching out to, first of all, make sure that these women want to participate. You know, they may have been nominated, but may not want to opt into that. And we've had a few that have not opted in. And then they can choose between a short intro, a listing, a full story. And so we've got a little bit of each of those on the site. And it's really been interesting to see those stories come in and a lot of strong engagement about that. So I'm excited as that continues to flesh out, but the plan again is for I think it's the November 17th board meeting, we would have a resolution that is just in advance of the November 19th Women Entrepreneurs Day. And so it'll be, I think, really great to be able to recognize all the amazing contributions that these women are making here in Trinity County. The county fair meeting was mentioned. I was asked to facilitate that community meeting on Thursday evening. I guess like Supervisor Cox, I received a notice this morning that it's not certain that Michael will have to go to Alaska. So they're still hopeful that the meeting will happen on the 20th, but it might be rescheduled. And, but I'm working with them and have a meeting, at least for now, planned tomorrow to kind of prepare for that facilitation, just to make sure that we can get the most out of it. And they're just very interested in engaging the community to better understand what are the realities of the fair and the fairgrounds and the board and the budget, as well as to gather input about different ways that things could be done to help. So looking forward to that. And I did want to mention funding it's interesting the way that history can be tweaked by the ways people interpret it. But for this board going forward and the new supervisors that will be coming in, Supervisor Cox and I hosted some meetings probably a couple years ago now on funding alternatives. So we did deep dives into the potential ways of bringing in funds through sales tax, gas tax, TOT, T-bid, all those sorts of things. There was a lot of good input on that, a lot of good work done on that, and that is not lost effort. It's just basically been put on hold. Part of the reason for that was that one of those options with an increase in TOT, the transient occupancy tax, we have, well, there's only one county that has 4%, and we're one of the few counties that have 5%. Everybody else has 10, 15 or more. And so we think that is a viable thing, and yet this county has voted down this tax that other people pay, the tourists coming into the county pay on multiple occasions. So this county is, on multiple occasions indicated if it involves the word tax, we're not usually behind it. So we're trying to be, as I've been involved in these discussions, trying to be very thoughtful and strategic about that. So one of the things that we've been working towards is a tourism business investment district that would also be funds collected from people staying at our short-term lodging options. And, but that can be done by a weighted vote of the lodging business owners. So we're still trying to work through that before we would put forward any kind of a TOT. And then the sales tax increase, was discussed. It's interesting, again, how that is always presented as apparently I have really, really amazing powers that I didn't know I have, because I do recall being in a fire chief's meeting. I do recall saying that if it were me, I would not be supporting something like this, because I don't feel like pre-dedicating to those 3 entities that were proposed at the time was the best use. And in fact, the subsequent budget year, we were able to refund some of those things that had been defunded in those entities. And so but that money would have been locked in. And my point was, yes, I do believe this county needs additional funding services and resources, but I think we need to be very thoughtful and strategic about how that happens and when it happens. And because through great leadership, where the jail health folks came together and brought in millions of dollars that we didn't used to have, that freed up money in the general funds, through the CAO working with things to help reduce budget costs, we've been able to get back to mostly where we were and do most of what we want to be able to do without coming forward with a tax. And I think there's credibility to ensuring that when we do come forward, it's because we really need it and we have very well thought out reasons and allocations and purposes. So just my version of history for those who would like a different one. And I think that is it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Cox?
Thank you. And I'll just add one extra piece to that version of history for a little more clarity on the truth, which is that the fire chiefs decided among themselves that they did not wish to participate in a countywide initiative on a sales tax that would involve a partnership between those folks concerned about the library and those folks concerned about the animal shelter. And this was decided among themselves because they can see the dollars that would be involved, the lock-in that would be there, what that would sort of be verbally promised to produce, but on paper, in reality, the bottom line, it would not. And it would also close off some other opportunities that they want to look to pursue in the future. Now to the board report. On Friday, August 7th, my out-of-county travel that day consisted of my quarterly meeting with the forest supervisor. We are kind of in a season of forest details right now. So while our forest supervisor Berkey is the acting regional supervisor, our district ranger, Tara Jones, has been joining the conversation with me and each acting supervisor in order to maintain consistency in our conversations, which I truly appreciate. This meeting, the acting supervisor was Lois Shoemaker. She's someone who has worked on this forest in the past, has been in another state, and has been brought back on this detail. So it's great to have someone who knows our area sitting in that seat during this time when we are wrapping up fire season. And I take great comfort in that. And speaking with her, I can assure all of us she knows what she's doing. So that is encouraging. We were also joined by Forest Fire Management Officer Kevin Osborne. And with this meeting, I was given the privilege of an incredible tour through the North Ops Center. So it's out on Airport Road. If you take Airport Road to get to the airport, you'll pass it there on your left. It's an extensive grounds area. And I guess the piece that I want to communicate to the public is through every office, every division, and I didn't get to all of them in that day. I was there 3 hours. It was very common to see a Forest Service personnel individual sitting right next to a CAL FIRE individual, working tandem, hand in hand. The folks that govern and guide where aircraft are dispatched to is all right there. You can see the active fires and which aircraft are where and who's in. All of that planning and strategy is worked in tandem with the meteorology, which is just in the next room. There are 5 meteorologists who work there, and if you ever want to see the coolest people that geek out over the most fun stuff, that is the place to go. And if you go on the website, which is kind of confusing, it's gacc.nifc.gov/ONCC. And I looked up what all of that means. It all makes sense. It's a Geographic Area Coordination Center. That's the GACC. And it's the National Interagency Fire Center.gov. And then the ONCC is the hard part to remember, and that's just code for the Northern California Coordination Center that's right here in Redding. And that website, you could spend hours on there, but there's a meteorology section on there that the folks that are taking in all that information, there's a report that comes out every day during fire season that's literally provided to you by one of those 5 meteorologists sitting in that room, creating a recorded update for you to kind of get a handle on the weather and the smoke and the humidity and the winds and all the things. Why am I going to all of this detail? It's because there can be a perception that here we sit in the middle of the forest and a fire happens and people don't do enough. And that is not my conclusion. When you go and you see it firsthand, there are highly trained, highly skilled, highly dedicated individuals who literally take the outcomes of their choices home with them every night. They care about us and where we live and how operations go on. And learning from the past and strategizing better for the future is absolutely part of the game and part of the goal. But I have the utmost respect for them. And one of the suggestions that I provided to Tara after the meeting was over, if you recall a few years back, I think she may have skipped 2 years because things get so busy. And all of her 5-year, plan of work that she has created, she did a couple of meetings annually at the Performing Arts Center where these kinds of educational things she's trying to bring to the public to help us understand the structure and the sort of hierarchy, the processes and procedures, the whys to things, the what we need, so that her goal is to create a landscape where she literally hands to our fire management officer the best conditions possible should a fire break out. That's what all this 5-year scope of work is about. And the interaction between our RCD and the Watershed Center and all of our combined partners really is making a difference on this landscape. And I applaud that so wholeheartedly. So Tara is interested in picking up those public meetings in the future going forward. And I hope that when that happens, we'll make that, help to publicize that, and it hopefully would be well attended. But I'm really grateful for what we receive. Moving forward on August the 12th, I joined RCRC, Cal Cities, and CSAC for a briefing about the proposed legislative restrictions on local government wildfire cost recovery, and you'll be hearing more about that. Regarding the Airport Advisory Committee, also on the 12th, I visited the Trinity Center Airport with the Airport Advisory Committee Chair, a concerned pilot, a member of the Trinity Center Volunteer Fire Department, and another citizen to better understand potential impacts and suggested solutions surrounding airport security and safety measures. So for those who are following kind of Supervisor Lutweiler, for your information as well, we did look at every single one of the 12 gates that are out there. There's been a lot of sort of conversation and a little bit of controversy surrounding how the county would like to handle those security issues. And so I gained all that clarity, which I really appreciate. And our airport advisory chair was in agreement with all that. So I created sort of a spreadsheet and have provided that to county staff, and feel like hopefully maybe some opposite ways of maybe looking at how that ought to work hopefully are cleared up. That was the goal. First 5 on August 13th, I completed my final task as the commission chair, which was an independent audit conversation. And of course, I had all good things to say about our program director, who does a phenomenal job. Further out of county travel, NorCal EMS on the 13th, I participated this time in person in the general session of the board meeting, as that staff have a brand new office in Reading. And so that was a great opportunity to invite any who could reasonably attend in person to see that new space. And it was good to be around a table of actual conversation face-to-face with staff, along with the Modoc County Supervisor and the NorCal EMS Medical Director. On the 14th, I attended a women's leadership forum sponsored by CSAC on conducting complicated conversations. Just want to say how grateful I am for all the efforts CSAC makes to give us resources and great ideas and encouragement, and to bring people together. Yesterday was a PSA 2 board meeting, which is always a virtual meeting. I'm so happy to report out that the Roderick Hay Fork Senior Center 26-27 nutrition contract was executed on July 29th with all the required information provided. They have a new program director who is doing a great job with communications, monthly invoicing, and program documentation. So congratulations to her on her new role, and grateful for her work. That is not an easy program to execute. When you're dealing with dollars that originate federally, there are many hoops to jump through, and we appreciate that outcome for those folks who participate at the Roderick Center. We have 2 applications from Trinity County that are being reviewed for membership for the PSA 2 Advisory Council. Pretty sure we owe a debt of gratitude to Mike Tony for finding those individuals who will participate there. It's a really important group. What they do to bring light to the needs of our aging population actually ends in many times in legislative changes and dollars that are provided. And their work it's important. It's very much in the shadows and very appreciated. The RCRC auction basket, I just want to point out how grateful I am to those that have stepped forward and donated. We have coming together a really beautiful basket. And I would like to find a way to give a shout out to each of those individuals. Maybe we can use Justin for that, to just kind of share those folks that stepped up and honor them for their contributions. I also want to say, with regard to the fair, just to perhaps give a little comfort, among the other 39 counties that I interact with at RCRC, I can tell you that issues with your fair are not uncommon. This is happening statewide in all of the things: the deferred maintenance, the lowering of attendance, the lesser of numbers of people who step forward to engage with the displays, and those folks that run those pieces that we come to think of as just being sort of normal at a fair. Little cool engines and so forth. It's kind of an aging population, and things are changing in our world. And so having these positive people come together with new ideas to reimagine what fairs can be and engage maybe in a new way for the future, I think is exciting, and I honor them for their creativity and their ingenuity. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Brownfield?
Okay, just a couple of things. We will be having a meeting with Drew Plabani from the Planning Department in our area at the Community Hall on Van Dusen on August 27th at 5:30. And everyone's welcome. I encourage everyone to be there. It's going to be a good conversation about the economic plan, the general plan update, the zoning that will follow, and the EIR, and any questions that people have about their properties, and anything else. It's a town hall for everyone, so I encourage everyone to be there. It'll be a very informative meeting. Drew has been very gracious to be there, and we appreciate his input there. Rick, I wanted to just make a comment on that I agree full-heartedly that when we do this tax, we need to think about the budget cuts that have already been made, and if we actually really need that tax. I do see, a need to talk about it and maybe put it on an agenda and really go through the opportunities of it. Again, I think it's good for the public to be involved a little bit more. This is a big decision, and maybe it's not this year, maybe it's next year or the year following, but I think that's really important. I think assessments for taxes may hit our property taxes a little bit, and we may find that we might need some extra funds. So I don't want to close the door on that, but I absolutely appreciate, because I'm a tax hawk, that we aren't going to do that right away and wait and see what happens there. The fair, I am so happy that the meeting happened. I think it's a crucial thing for our county that fair be successful. I know everyone did their best this year to get it together. I think all of the information, the input, is going to really help in the next year or two to get it back on track. Maybe dates changed, but the conversation itself was needed, and I'm glad that it was had, and I appreciate you for doing that. I just had a question about District 5 being put on as a community plan. I'm not aware of that, and if it was, I think there are still many questions about cannabis. I'm not hearing that that's resolved at all, so I need, and Post Mountain, there's some real anxiety over it. I know we've got time to address it, but I really, this is not a finished thing, and I think we have a lot to do on District 5 and Post Mountain as it pertains to cannabis. And I know we will as a board. We'll get together and the community will, and we will fix it. But just wanted to say that. I went to a Superior, the SCED, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a Superior California Economic Development. And they fund projects in counties in rural counties. And Nina Natina is with the government, and she did a CalBiz. There's a CalBiz site that you can go to, and they're trying to focus on certain types of funding for counties. And what she said was interesting to me, because it doesn't really, our rural counties, ag technology, life sciences, aerospace. So when we put input for our rural counties, we need to really be aware of what their priorities really are, and if they affect our counties, and if we can actually find funding for the real things we need here, and not the, in some of these. So we need to be involved in those decisions a lot more than we already are, I think. It's important. That's a really wonderful group. They do a lot of great things, and they've done a lot in Shasta, and I think there's a lot of room for them to help us here in our rural counties. But we need to go after it, and good people. I got to see a lot of our colleagues from other counties, so it was really nice to talk to them and their problems and to see what they're doing. Oh, sure, sorry. Yep. So that's the end of my report. I have no out-of-county travel. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the hard work that everybody does. As I've mentioned before, it's so much more than just being here on the meeting day. I had the opportunity to have a few meetings over the last week with some of our staff, and I'm always impressed with their capacity to lead themselves and others in their departments well. I just want to give a shout out to the sheriffs around the state who made a strong stand against the grizzly bears being released, as Trinity County was one of the locations that was being eyed for such a release, and that failed completely, didn't make it out at all, and so there will be no grizzly bears being released in Trinity County in the near future. So thank you, sheriff's departments and other counties that wrote letters in opposition to that. We have a pretty significant fire across the county line now in Humboldt, down near the community of in between Witchpeck and Hoopaw. So Western County has been inundated for days and smoke to varying degrees, and just want to make sure people remember to run your air purifiers and do those things that you need to do. I know that a lot of folks are complaining. We're at that place where it starts having a physical impact. Your throat starts to get sore and your eyes are runny, and allergies seem to be exacerbated by that. So just take care of yourselves. I do, as Supervisor Cox mentioned, just appreciate the vast amount of interplay it takes between our tribal natural resource departments and our federal government and our state government and CHP and Caltrans and everybody who has to play a role when wildfires take light. It's super easy to stand in the convenience store in your town and say no one's doing anything when you're buying a beer on your way home and just having something to complain about. But I can assure you that maybe not everything's always done perfectly, but I do know that those men and women are working incredibly hard to try to keep all of us safe. I see the rotation of crews through our Salyer station there. And as our men and women are off in Oregon and Washington, other states have sent their men and women to stand guard at our gate so that our men and women can stand guard at someone else's gate. And I know from seeing the pictures of Oregon and Washington that they need all the help they can get. So I just ask for prayers for all of them. And I always think it's interesting that we don't have tornado fighters or hurricane fighters or tsunami fighters, but we have wildfire fighters. And so it's a natural disaster and people go stand between it and us. And so I'm express gratitude to them. I have stay abreast of the information coming through on NACO public lands. And as you can imagine, all of the Western information is about fire right now. So not a lot new there, but I do want to say I had a conversation, a couple different conversations over the last week or so with constituents that have concerns about certain things, and one of them was brought before the board in a letter. But then I did follow up with a conversation on the phone regarding the degradation of Old Helena. It's very sad. I've watched that happen over the years. It is a privately owned property. The landowner for whatever reason, hasn't decided to make decisions that would help protect that area. But I do know that it has extreme value to all of us. And please just help people to understand that spray painting and destroying historical landmarks is not anything anybody should be proud of. It's not something that you should want to post on your Instagram or whatever it is to show that you have made a fresh tag on a historical landmark. And just the tearing down of the bricks and ripping the windows out and breaking the doors in is absolutely appalling. And it's just something that I hope one day we can work together as a community and try to do some restoration to that place, because it is truly a wonderful, it used to be a beautiful snapshot of what time was before. And we should honor our historical landmarks and not see them destroyed. So Thank you for the people who care about that, and I hope that we can move together somehow in the future to address that issue. But that's all I have to report out for now, and we'll move on with reports out from any ad hocs. Our current ad hoc is tourism funding. Supervisor Leweiler.
No updates. Thank
No
you.
updates. Thank you.
Chair, may I make a
Sir,
comment?
yes, sir.
So there was a little discussion about community plans and District 5. So there is a specific community plan for Post Mountain. There is not a community plan, quote, for District 5. So I just wanted to clarify that for anybody who may be listening. I think board is well aware of that, but for any members of the public, there is, we have 8 community plans, and decision was made to add a specific community plan for Post Mountain, and that has been done and created. There was also some discussion about the use or lack thereof of the cannabis term in said community plans. I would like to remind the public and the board also that the decision was made to include cannabis in agriculture as agricultural. So you will see agricultural mentioned numerous times in various places in said community plans where it's effective. But you might not see the specific term cannabis brought up because the decision was made to include cannabis within the overall agricultural community and umbrella. So just to provide a little clarification for that for anybody who may be listening.
Thank you for that.
My apologies for lumping in the community plan and District 5. We did add 2 extra, Post Mountain and Coffee Creek.
We didn't add coffee.
It was Post Mountain and I believe High and Palm.
And High Palm, excuse me.
Is that-
The
that's
2 that
correct.
we added. So when I said District 5, I was wrong. It was Post Mountain.
Yes, and I will speak to that as well. I attended community plan meetings and the people were given, I believe even an extra meeting in some cases to refine and add to what those individual communities wanted in those plans. And those plans were gone through by those communities extensively before they were passed before this board. So I can attest to the process, and I believe the process was whole. We will now move to consent calendar. These items include routine, non-controversial matters and will be acted upon by the board by one roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments on an item on the consent calendar, they may provide them now. A member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar? Good day.
Yes, my name is Daleen Donaldson. I am here to ask that D7 be pulled from the agenda until we have a further meeting on this. It's been almost 3 years that the funding for the Veterans Hall has been sitting. Things have progressed slowly. As of 3 weeks ago, I was told that is not your top priority. I don't know when this is going to happen, but from what I understand, now we want to do the grease trap. I want this pulled from the agenda until I can sit down and discuss this with Trent, Jill, any of you, to find when we're actually going to start this. It's been almost 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. And you've had $1.5 million sitting in a bank, collecting interest. Everything else is getting done. That track up there at the high school got done. Fire department got done. I can't understand why we're not moving more energetically to get this done. And the most important thing of that Veterans Hall is to finish and upgrade the kitchen. From the meeting I had three weeks ago with Trent, I was left with the opinion that this is a public project. and for the veterans as well as the public of this county. And I left with the feeling that, we're really not that important. So I would like it pulled. And for the record, I'd also like a copy of the agreement that the state and the county got for this Veterans Memorial Hall. And I would like to have a complete accounting of all the expenditures from the time that hit the bank until now for the Veterans Memorial Hall. That's all I have to say.
Do we have any further public comment in the room on the consent calendar? Do we have any online?
There are no.
Okay, we'll close public comment on the consent calendar.
Chair, I'd like to pull D7, please.
Okay, we'll pull D7 on request of Supervisor Cox. Do we have a motion for the remainder of the consent calendar?
I move to approve all items on the consent calendar as presented, other than D7.
I will second.
Okay, do we have any comments or discussion on the consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote.
Supervisor Brogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Lutwiler?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Brownfield?
Aye.
Chairman Carpenter?
Aye. We will now hear item D3. Do we have any public?
D7.
Or I'm sorry, D7. Thank you.
Mhm.
We will now hear item D7, County Administrative Office. Approve an amendment number 1 to the agreement with White Church Engineering Incorporated, extending the term to June 30th, 2027, extending the contract performance to June 15th, 2027, increasing the maximum cost by $6,000, and updating Exhibit B with the change order number 1 to provide grease trap redesign and upgrade within the Weaverville's Veterans Memorial Hall project. Do we have public comment on item D7?
Well, do you want maybe the CEO to speak to it first?
Yes, please.
Might
I'm
be
sorry.
good. That's okay.
Point of order, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do a quick introduction here and then can take any questions that you may have. This item is to incorporate an unforeseen aspect associated with the grease trap. There were some as-built drawings that were provided to Which Church Engineering from the county that had the grease trap location in the wrong place. And during their time on site, they were able to figure out appropriately where the actual grease trap is located and how it flows and functions. And we're able to incorporate that into their 95% design, which is done now. But that was not an anticipated cost when they bid the project because the county supplied as-built drawings were inaccurate.
Okay.
So there's also an extension of the term of the contract in there because it's just necessary to do. To address, the public comment that was provided, I did sit down. I'm happy to sit down with anybody on this project. The county does not have staff to do a project like this. This project has fallen on me. So if you want to complain about the time that has taken this project, you can look directly at me, and that's just fine, and I'll take that. But if the board wants to reprioritize my time and make this a more of a priority, I'm happy to spend time on it. But we don't have staff to do this. There's engineering that is also required for this county to provide review on, and we don't have staff to do that. We have engineers for road projects. We have engineers within DOT, and that's how they're funded. But we as a county do not typically do public works type of facilities projects like this. The last one we did was the county jail. We paid a project manager $1.2 million to provide project management support for that $20 million project. If the board would like, I'm happy to use some of this $1.1 million and hire a project manager to do the project manager work. But that will directly take away from the said amount of money available to do the actual construction in the facility. And I we could do that, but I don't recommend that at this time. But that's why the time is extended on this effort.
Yeah, I appreciate that we have this opportunity to kind of have this conversation a little more publicly, because Trent and I have, CEO Title and I have had this conversation multiple times, as have the public that would very much like to see this project move forward. And I think that while the fact that it's on an agenda shows that the project is moving forward. This is the next step. It's unfortunate that the county had plans that showed an item in the wrong place. It's not uncommon. If any of us were to pull out our house plans because we needed to make an upgrade on something, imagine we would all find something wasn't quite where we thought it was, and that's happened to us. That building is very old. And so the fact that we've got to do a little pivot here, but that grease trap is part of the kitchen that we want to see fixed. And I think,
understand that.
so it's not time for public comment yet.
Okay.
Just a moment. We'll give you we'll call you back up in just a minute. Thank you.
And I think that the point that really needs to be heard is the fact that project management is a cost to any project, as is administration of the project itself. The time that somebody spends with the books, with the paperwork and the contracts and the paychecks and accounting for all of those things, so that a document can be produced for any member of the public that would like to see what has happened. That's all available, but it's because somebody sat and did that it can be there. And so I am thrilled that this is on the agenda and see it as a positive step moving forward. And if anything, I want to express gratitude for somebody that can wear so many hats under one umbrella, keep moving all of the things down the road, and take on yet another piece that we are not paying extra for, because he's able to find a way to do it. So we will get to hear more comment about that, but that's my view of this at present.
Any further comment from the board? Or questions, rather? Questions? Okay,
Public comment.
Okay, we'll now entertain public comment on item D7. So you may return to the podium at this time.
I have requested, again, my name is Daleen Donaldson. Trent, I'm not unhappy with the situation, but I am. It's taken so long, and I get why. I totally get why. But I have asked, or specifically volunteered, to do anything that if I need a direction. If we could sit down and say, okay, we don't have enough funding for an engineer architect. Let me take that on. Give me an assignment. Let me go find the funding that will be extra for this project. I got 1.5 million. I might have enough smarts in this brain of mine, which is 77 years old, to figure out how to find some more funding, but I need a direction. I need to work with people that would like to work with me. I've not been rude, nor have I been disrespectful. I do not constantly, which I'm known as a black gnat, come to your office and bug you about it, because I know you're terribly busy. And so are you, Jill. I'm well aware of that. But I'd like to work with you. Give me an assignment. If we need extra funding for an engineer, let me find one. I have resources that you have not a clue that I have. I'll work with you. I want this project. I put my own money into this project, my own. And this is for the county. It's for the veterans and all the people in this county. I'm willing just to keep on working and run my business just like you run this county at the same time. And trust me when I tell you, it's not easy. So that's all I want to say is I'm willing, if we can sit down, Jill, Trent, or any of you supervisors and discuss it and come up with a game plan, I'm for it. I like organization. I like strategy. I love playing chess. So please hear me out. do something. And I'm about done with time and I have no more time. So that's all I have to say. I'm willing to put my own effort into it, as I've already proven. Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Just one second.
Okay, sure.
Is there any further public comment online? Okay, we'll now close public comment and bring it back to the board. Does anyone have an item they would like to speak into this?
We need
Oh.
to have a motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
Point
That's
of
just
order.
fine.
I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, now, do we have, any discussion on this item?
Yeah, I love the veterans. And I think if there's any way that we can help facilitate a quicker result with this, I would love to find a way to accommodate that. I think it's a noble cause. It needs to happen. And they've waited a long time. Maybe there is something that nobody's thought about, and it's worth entertaining it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else have a statement?
Yeah, one statement, the track at the high school is totally separate from this. It's not a board of supervisors thing. You said we got the track done. The board, CEO Tuthill had. So I just wanted to keep the confusion. We did not have anything to do with the track getting done or not getting done. That was different. That was McGuire and his help. So I don't want people to think that we had the authority to do that. And we pushed that forward for some particular reason. We had nothing to do with that, basically.
Complete. All right, Supervisor Lutweiler.
Yes. You know, I would have to speak with CEO Tuthill for more details, but as he acknowledged, you know, project management, if you think about a general contractor that takes on a project, they usually charge 20, 30, 40% of the cost of what the work that gets done. So if we've got $1 million+ and we want somebody to manage it other than the person that we've given a lot of other priorities to, and I can recall about 50 that were above this, honestly, we can do that. But if you say that, then you're taking 30% of whatever million dollars, that's $300,000 to $400,000 out of the money that could be used on the building to help move it forward. So I just think we need to be very thoughtful about that. It is not a cheap date to hire this person that will plan and orchestrate and move it forward, which is why our CAO has stepped up and said, look, I can't burden other staff. We don't have people for it. It's not in their job description and they are already overworked. I can try to keep moving it forward without having to use any of that money for that. So I think we as a board at some point need to decide, are we trying to raise this in his priorities? Or are we saying that we're going to come up with or allocate some of that funding for project management support so that it can move forward without more of his time? But we can't just wish.
No, but I think there's a way to be creative on trying to find some solutions maybe that this woman, maybe, or any facilitating, any kind of solutions that she might help with.
CEO Tuthill.
Thank you, Chair. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the desire for creative solutions. I've worked now for 34 years in the public sector, dealing specifically with public funds and contracts. And all good intentions are well until they go south and until somebody starts questioning things. And when you're dealing with public funds, it's a whole different ballgame that you've got to consider. I'm also a veteran of 30 years, and I want to see this project as much as Dee does. I am more than willing to sit down more often with Dee and provide more updates, but I do believe we have made a decent amount of progress. On me, I haven't publicly discussed it in here, We've got the full 95% design drawings done. Those drawings have gone through the building department for initial plan check. We've made one round of changes. I've got to work with the planning department or the building department and see if there's any more changes we need to make before we go to 100% design. We've got the RFP document that is fairly close to being released. And I will remind everybody again, we didn't have such a document in this county because we don't do projects like this. So I went out to a different county, got a template. We've created that, and now it's pretty close to being able to put this out on bid. There are multiple state codes that we have to follow for public works, public funded projects, and we're doing all that, and that's all incorporated into this multiple, much longer document than it should be, but it is what it is, and that's what we're working through. The plan is to get that out to bid, probably within the next 60 days or so, and then that'll be out for bid for probably 45 to 60 days. We hopefully get a contractor lined up. And in the wintertime, when a contractor is more than likely going to be wanting some indoor work, that's when the work will take place. So, the big ticket items that we have to do on this project, one, the first priority we have to do is the ADA aspect. We have to do it statutory by law, no questions asked. And then we're looking at the kitchen. We have some major HVAC that needs to be done, and then there's some electrical work that needs to be done. Depending upon how bids come in and how much money we have, then we can look at things like the painting and some other more cosmetic type of activities. But we're optimistic based upon the bid estimates that the contractor has provided that, we can get the kitchen solidified, we can get the HVAC taken care of, we can get some of the electrical, we can get the 88 things taken care of, we can get the access to the stage taken care of. So I think we can make some good progress there. It's just going to take a little bit of time to do that. Somebody may say, well, why don't you just have one of our volunteer, engineers, maybe somebody who's still got their PE floating around, that just wants to spend some volunteer time on that. That's great. We as the county take on all that liability if anything goes wrong in the future. So there's more complications to some of these good ideas than I think are worthy of discussion in here. Sometimes they sound well, but when you get my partner on my left here involved, then sometimes they don't go so well, and we open ourselves up to some undue liability, and that's not what I want to do for us. So in 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years, we have a facility that is well appreciated and that doesn't create liability for when we are all no longer in these seats.
Thank you so much. That is a really thoughtful explanation. I so appreciate that, Trent, because I understand it better too. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Supervisor Cox, did you have any further comments?
I just want to, I think we probably all get it, but I want to say it out loud. The prioritization of this among all of the other initiatives that this county is trying to move down the road right now, and the placing of this in a spot that is reasonable to protect the funds that have been hard sought. This is not about nobility and honor. We all agree that our veterans are well deserving of far more than we can ever offer their direction. This is very binary. This is about money and time and resources and a prioritization that just has to happen. And different people do things differently around our home. My husband and I say all the time, if we just hired out every project that we wanted to do, our place would look amazing. But we do them one at a time in a priority because we do them ourselves, and it takes longer. But we spend a lot less money that way. And so I put up with some pieces that I don't like looking at because I'm working on the one I am working on right now. And And so I get that. I understand how it feels to have to wait. But I, for one, appreciate guarding our resources because we're waiting, and certainly appreciate guarding our liability. And so maybe the lesson learned here is that we just need to hear more of these details. I hear them because CAO Tuthill and I interact on this on a regular basis. But for someone like Supervisor Brownfield who just needed to hear it, I think that that's really positive and really helpful.
Okay, we will now call for the vote.
Supervisor Cox,
Aye.
Supervisor Leutwiler,
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan,
Aye.
Supervisor Brownfield,
Aye.
Chairman Carpenter Harris.
Aye, thank you. Before we move to county matters, we will take a 10-minute recess and return at 10:56.
Oh. From what? Braden's milk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been looked at.
Yeah, it is bad.
Get some yummy coffee. It's just about coffee season. Starts getting cool outside. You ready? Okay. We will now call back to order the meeting of August 18th for the Trinity County Board of Supervisors. We're now entering into the county matters portion of our agenda. These items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board, staff, or public may request that an item be heard out of order. We'll start with item E1, Community Development. Planning Department, discuss and/or authorize the chairman to sign a letter supporting the designation of qualified census tracts as opportunity zones. Good morning, Mr. Lubani.
Good day, Chair, Supervisors, Drew Plabani, Director of Community Development Department. So we've had some brief discussions about opportunity zones over the last month or two. And I'll go through and give a kind of brief summary, and we'll go from there. So last month, GoBiz opened up a process for local jurisdictions to submit local authority recommendation forms. Of the current 4 census tracts in Trinity County, 3 were considered to be qualifying based on Treasury, and census and American Community Survey data. So we submitted those forms, those requests to GoBiz, and then early this month, the state released through their essentially the information was provided on the portal, which is a ArcGIS resource, which provides both a mapping functionality and a public comment piece. Of the 3 census tracts that we applied for, one of them was nominated by the state. And so through that process, they're giving the public the ability to provide public comment on the 3 census tracts, including the census tract that the state has preliminarily determined and included into, as their preliminary recommendation. The state has approximately 1,250 census tracts, qualifying census tracts that are being considered. And the goal is to narrow that down to approximately 618 census tracts that then the governor's office will send up to the federal government and Treasury, I believe, for their sort of final determination and approval as a federally designated opportunity zone. Of the 1,250 census tracts statewide, again, they're trying to narrow that down to 618. The preliminary list includes approximately 550. And so I think primarily the desire from the state is to allow for public input on their preliminary list, but they only publish 550 versus 618, I would imagine, based on what was communicated at some of the webinars that I joined on this topic, to give them some leeway to include additional census tracts into ultimately what they will bring to the governor and then forward on to Treasury. So in the attachments to this item, you see there's a number of FAQs that were provided just to give additional context. In the body of the staff report, there's the link to the mapping tool, which as we get into discussion, if it's helpful, we can bring that up so we can look at the census tracts in the county graphically, if that's helpful for any of you all, for the public, so we can do that. And then also was a draft letter for your consideration. Supervisor Lutweiler did some digging in on this topic and provided a bunch of additional information. And so I want to point out one error that well, two errors. One, the letter should be addressed to the governor. So we want to make that change. And then I made reference to census tract, and I'll refer to the census tracts by their last three digits, so I don't have to read all the numbers every time. But census tract 500, I refer to it as currently having been designated as a federal opportunity zone. After reviewing Supervisor Lutweiler's additional information and doing a bit more research, I came to understand that the geographic area which each census tract nationwide, as I understand it, represents, those were modified in conjunction with the 2020 census. And so what is now Census Tract 500 includes primarily, if not all, of the area that was previously in Census Tract 300. Census Tract 300 is no longer a census tract, at least in Trinity County. And so I made reference to Census Tract 500 being currently a federal opportunity zone, which that is incorrect. 300 was the correct number. And then 101 was also previously designated under the federal opportunity zones 1.0. And so just a little bit of additional sort of background. The original, the previous version 1.0 opportunity zone program was established by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. And then this last year, under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, it was modified and made permanent. And so this is what we're referring to as Opportunity Zones 2.0. The qualifying criteria were modified under the 2.0 program. And let's see, what else should I highlight? I guess I can go through and just, until we pull up the graphical display. 101 is essentially the eastern boundary of Trinity County, kind of starting in Douglas City, moving up through Lewiston, up through North Lake, Trinity Center, et cetera. 500 is basically south of Douglas City, a little bit south of the downriver corridor, all the way to the southernmost and all the way, east to west across that whole bottom section of the county. And 200 is essentially downriver corridor and that northwest sort of corner of the county. I think in terms of, why did we go through the effort to apply for the local authorization or form and provide, basically the request to GoBiz to consider our census tracts. Opportunity zones essentially provide a financial incentive for development. There's quite a bit that could fall under that tax benefit or the sort of deferral of capital gains tax as it relates to some of the few things that we can do to help support development in the county and attract developers to come in and engage in capital projects. I can run through kind of a list of some of the various projects that could qualify under federal opportunity zones, if that's helpful. Would you like me to just kind of run through sort of a very generalized list of the types of projects? Okay.
Yes, please.
So potential investments associated with opportunity zone designation could include, but are not limited to, job creation and workforce development, expansion, retention, and modernization of local businesses, housing and community development, infrastructure improvements, broadband and telecommunications expansion, forest restoration and fuels reduction projects, natural resource stewardship, recreation-related businesses and facilities, tourism and visitor-serving economic opportunities, agricultural, forestry, and natural resource-based businesses, and other private sector investments that contribute to the long-term economic vitality and resilience of Trinity County. and again, opportunity zone designation can make investments in Trinity County more financially attractive by allowing investors to defer certain capital gains taxes and potentially eliminate federal tax on appreciation from qualifying opportunity zone investments held for at least 10 years. But, the main caveat there is that having an opportunity zone doesn't mean that a developer or any private entity, individual will choose to come into Trinity County and leverage that as, unfortunately, to my knowledge, of our two previously currently qualifying census tracts, I don't believe we had any investment come in to leverage the potential benefit of opportunity zones. So I think that ties us back together with the general plan, the economic development element, and having a more cohesive and forward-looking strategy to try to attract investors to take advantage of this type of opportunity into the county. I also want to point out that Census Tract 102, which is the fourth census tract in the county that does not currently meet the criteria, I did submit a letter requesting GoBiz to reconsider Census Tract 102, and also made an argument there that essentially, I think it parallels kind of the draft letter that was in the staff report, but made the argument that geographic equity is of great significance, and that, whereas with, I'm sure, a number of other jurisdictions throughout the state, their jurisdiction is not segmented by a census tract. Whereas, we're faced with the potential of having to prioritize which of our three qualifying census tracts we think should be the one to get, if we're only going to get one, would be the best census tract to support. And so, again, I think the argument I made in the off census tract letter was that, and the request was that all four of the census tracts in the county be considered opportunity zones, and that, from a standpoint of geographic equity, we don't want to see investment just in one part of the county. We want to see the potential for investment in all parts of the county, given that we are one of, if not currently, the poorest county in the state. So with all of that said, there is a draft letter. That draft letter, or the comment, needs to be a comment submitted, or there could be a comment submitted for each of the census tracts up on the mapping tool. So I think there's two options. One, we collectively work to refine this letter that can be applied as a comment to each of the qualifying census tracts, including prioritization or not, or we could craft a singular letter that we submit as a comment for all of the three qualifying census tracts. Susie's giving me a look. So I think there could be three letters, or there could be one letter. The one letter could probably be specific to each of the census tracts, or we could come up with one letter that then prioritizes, and we submit that same letter 3 times for the 3 separate census tracts for a comment for each of the census tracts.
Could you describe geographically where 102 is?
102 is essentially Weaverville and a bit north. I don't know sort of how to better define that boundary, but we can certainly look at it up on the screen graphically.
Is there any further questions at this time? Questions of?
Clarify 300 though, because you did the 101, 500, 200, 102.
So 300 is, as I understand it, no longer a census tract within Trinity County. That was
into 500.
Okay, you said
Right.
that. I didn't understand that it meant it went away. I thought it, okay.
and was mostly gobbled up by 500.
Any further questions?
It's more discussion, so wait for
Okay.
the right time.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. We'll now, is there any public comment in the room on this item? Seeing none, do we have any public comment online?
No raising.
Okay, we'll close public comment on this item. I'll now entertain a motion or direction.
Uh, Council, is this one where we can go ahead and just have some discussion because we don't have a clear thing to approve? We need to figure out what we want to put forward.
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'm ready
Supervisor
whenever.
Leutwiler, please.
Okay, so Drew mentioned doing some bit of a deeper dive, and one of the things I'd mentioned when we talked about this at previous meetings was this can get to be an emotionally driven thing. You know, I want my zone, area, town, community, whatever to be on the list. And I think we need to, as much as we can, be objective about it and try to say, which do we think we would be most likely to be successful with? And which do we think we would, in even obtaining the federal designation? And then second, that we would be successful in obtaining funding for, because as Drew pointed out, this doesn't give you funds. It makes it more attractive to people to spend their money here on projects. And so, and then he made the point that at least to the extent we can find, we've had some opportunity zones and nobody's ever taken advantage of. So when this all first came up, it was because Nick with the watershed had kind of noted this, and he highlighted something and said, oh, let's get the Weaverville piece. And we went through all these motions and then figured out it didn't meet those current criteria. And one of the reasons that we were looking at the Weaverville piece was because we have been talking to some people about potential investments in the Weaverville area. Because that's one that is more likely that people would invest in, because it's more likely they'll get a return on their investment. It doesn't mean it's the most in need, you know, it's just, those are two different things. So when I did the deeper dive with two different versions of AI and trying to understand, and I took the questions over page, I can't remember, 638, 639, something like that, that had questions. What are the correct criteria that they look at to decide whether you should be approved? And so I said, look at our general plan, look at our community plans, look at our housing element, look at our placemaking action plan, look at, and then come back and tell me which ones best meet and why. And so again, all AI, I'm on vacation. I didn't do a deeper dive than that. So although I did do like 7 iterations, but well, I never get what I want out of one. But anyway, what it came back consistently is to say that the Lewiston area was the number one. And the part of the reason was that the community plan, as mentioned earlier in the day, you know, those carry weight. And the community plan specifically calls out some decisions that were made in the community plan that is very pro for investments of these types. It also noted that there was recently a significant investment in the water and sewer that would support another 140 homes than what it, you know, it's the capacity is there. So it looked at those things that, this is why this one would look more attractive. And then the second one was the Hayfork zone. I'm not going to use the numbers because they confuse us anyway, but the Hayfork inclusive zone. And it had the highest level of poverty, which was one of the criteria. That was part of it. And there were some opportunities, things that met that criteria. And then I kept pushing it, kind of saying like, well, but you know, there's this fairgrounds piece where we have these county fairgrounds and we have a need for perhaps development and repurposing of facilities and all that kinds of things. And it still kept coming back with Lewiston as number one, but it's still just, you know, it's AI's version. Doesn't mean we have to go in that direction. But my thought is that we need to decide which ones do we want to prioritize, like 1, 2, or 3. I think there should be 3 separate letters, and whether we use AI or not, we should be not the exact same wording. You know, like each one should be distinguished why this one. We can have a lot of generic language, but I think we should have some language in there that is specific to, and this is why we think this one should be approved, regardless of whether it was 1, 2, or 3. This is why. And then I do think that this board going forward, because it won't be all of us sitting here, needs to make sure that they are, when they make those prioritizations, they are also planning to give direction to staff to prioritize future efforts in those prioritized zones. Because for instance, with, you know, if we get this PIP funding, And AI was even saying, and in your letters, you should say that. And we intend to, deploy a good portion of these kinds of PIP funds and whatever the pro housing funds, sorry, I throw out these acronyms, in this zone. And they said, and that doesn't commit you to that. So don't worry that you have to, even if you said you would, but it would then be taken as, oh, okay, so they might have some funds that they plan to implement there. That's another reason why we should approve them at the federal level. But I'm just saying that it is a waste of staff's time to keep chasing these if we're not going to then follow through and try to do something with them.
Right.
And the point has been made kind of by history that we've had two for quite a while and we got nothing. So I applaud Drew's efforts to keep pushing through this. It's not been an easy lift. And I think it's in part because this is also the person who on his own said, we really should have an economic development element to our general plan. Wasn't even part of the scope. He's making it happen. So it's great that we have somebody there to champion that for us, but this board is the one that can empower him to do something about that. So I'll stop for now.
So question, so you've brought up multiple times now the fact that we've had an opportunity zone, but nothing's ever come of it. And the question that I am wondering, I've never heard of opportunity zones until this. And so looking back, which developer, who even knew there was one to even consider utilizing such an asset and, practically. And if they didn't, then that's a huge, I think, piece of making it work is how will we communicate better?
Well, off the top of my head, I mean, I think one of the things that from a policy perspective helps to kind of clarify, that direction to staff is related to the economic development element of the general plan. And so, amidst the various programs and policies and programs in the economic development element, I think one of the things that probably could have some good effect, to your question directly is, we build out county-wide or community-specific prospectus that we promote, that we say, hey, this is, the cheapest property in the state, this is an opportunity zone, and we start to move forward promoting that opportunity zone to developers, because to your question and your point, I don't know if anyone knew. I mean, I suppose if someone was browsing around, on one of the web resources, one of the mapping tools, they might have seen that. But again, I think that from a data perspective, that's one of the challenges that we have with our, reasonably low population is how do we attract someone, and how does that work for their performa to make a profit by, developing in Trinity County. I think that's one of the challenges, and CEO Tuthill and I had a conversation on this topic yesterday with some of the, known developers that have maybe limitedly expressed interest, or at least taken a look at the potential in Trinity County. And I think it's tough for those projects to pencil out. And so, within all of that, I think, we need to have a more clear economic development plan and strategy and move forward with that, over the next years and decades to try and leverage some of these, specifically for today's item, federal opportunity zones.
And I would agree with everything that he just said, and the fact that, again, thanks to the initiative and vision, we are likely to have these PIP funds, pro housing incentive plan funds, program funds, whatever they are, that is another carrot. So besides having the opportunity zone or designation that then helps the investors of developers or whomever get a better return on the investment, take less risk as they do it, whatever those things are, if we have some funds that we can help implement, even if it's short term, we could say, oh, well, yes, we'll give you this money so that you don't have to go get a loan for the initial work. Like sometimes you have to go get the loan to even do the work and then you get the mortgages and so forth. Well, the county could be the source of those initial funds out of PIP type funds, as long as it meets the criteria of workforce housing, affordable housing, the appropriate things. And so it's just getting creative about, well, what are those economic development assets, tools? And this is an important tool. The opportunity zones, the PIP funding is an opportunity. The work that we talked about in the last meeting where we're trying to get, it wasn't a subdivision committee, it was a technical review committee or something, all those things that you can start to bring forward and leverage Justin as our PIO and Drew as our community development director and start pushing it out there that, hey, we put all these pieces in place to be able to move things forward here in Trinity County. You may have thought about here before and even done homework and came away saying it's not good. All these things change that. But it's a very intentional effort to make that happen.
And if I may just add, one of the things that I think we established in the general plan under the economic development element was to have some sort of annual review going forward of kind of those economic, of the general plan in its entirety, but specific to economic development, some sort of an annual summit of sorts. And so my hope would be that, going forward after adoption of the general plan and clear policy direction to proceed with some of those, specific economic development priorities, that we would then bring back to the board in future years the outcome of that economic development, activity summit. And then we certainly could brainstorm, at the summit and then also with the board in terms of, and I think, we could get into it now, but I think it's well outside the scope of what we're trying to figure out for today of, how do we further incentivize development? Are there, how could we formalize development agreements? How, could we defer taxes, property taxes for developments, for a certain period of time? And what do we have available to us to further incentivize? Because obviously we don't have huge capital reserves to, support projects like that. And so how can we be creative and move these things forward and promote development in Trinity County?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to our to our decision today, the Weaverville portion is off the list unless they come back and sort of hear your plea and understand the equity that you're asking for. That can't really be our decision today because that's an unknown. So we're looking at the other three, and your ask is, do you put all three forward? Do you put one or two forward? And if you do more than one, in what order of priority? Is that the correct question?
Yeah, and I mean, I was really hopeful that I would be able to bring a clear staff recommendation, but there aren't any projects that I'm aware of that are on the horizon where we could then say, oh, well, it definitely should be this census tract. So my best attempt was to propose that we request all three census tracts that are eligible for their consideration. So looking through the letter, it could be as simple as a revision to basically the second to last paragraph, last page, and we just prioritize and say, if you're unwilling to, propose all three of these for, if the governor is unwilling to send all three of these up to the federal government for inclusion, that this is how we request they be prioritized, or we just leave it as is and ask for all three and submit that as a comment for each of the three census tracts. That's the other.
Do you get the sense that if you asked for the whole, that you would be less likely to be honored with that?
Well, they've already given us one in their preliminary, process. So, 550 to 616, if I'm remembering the numbers right, that's another 66. So whatever, 12%, that they have statewide to include new census tracts. And I gave it my best attempt to make a persuasive argument in terms of why they should consider, the three qualifying census tracts for inclusion, in terms of how we would then collectively come up with well, we think, 101 is the best, 500 is the second best, and 200 is the third best, or, I'm just throwing that out there, not to say that I have no, no data or any real way to quantify or qualify, that recommendation, unfortunately. So that was my best attempt to say, hey, just give us all the census tracts.
And I guess to that point, sorry, is that okay?
No.
Is if there was just one letter and it said, we support the one that's already on the list. Here's our case for why the other two should be on the list. And we're going to mention again that there's one that should have been on the list. The Weaverville version that I know because that there's the two different qualifications is, does it even meet the criteria? Which at least the way it's interpreted now, Weaverville doesn't. And then the second is, if it met that, did it get recommended by the state, which only one did? And so we're trying to basically, yes, keep the one, elevate two others, and then, we could make another push for the Weaverville just there, just as so it's on the list and they see it, but it's a one cohesive letter that maybe just includes some information about why we think each of them should be considered. And we ought to realize that just as the state had to decide which of the 1,250 they want to put forward, the feds, doesn't usually approve everything that comes to them either. So we're just trying to get not only on the list, but have some good information that will support it staying on the list.
Or even just recognition that you'll be included next time, something. I think either 3 letters with unique language supporting each zone is fine, or one, and then adding on the bottom why each zone is fine. But I would like to see all of them go forward as a request. I look at these communities and I can make an argument for every one of them. Of course, I'm going to make the biggest argument for 200, but I do know that each of the supervisors from those other ones could do the same thing. I just, anything that can kind of breathe some air into the sails of possibility is going to be helpful. And so my inclination is to just ask for everything, rather shoot for the stars and mists and shoot for a pilot and make it. So.
And I'm just sorry to interrupt, but so would you, with supporting all 3, would you try to prioritize, or just say we think all 3 and not try to prioritize?
I wouldn't try to prioritize personally, but that doesn't mean.
Well, I want to, if we could back up for 1 second and have one more tiny side discussion and then continue on that, because when we think back to when Dollar General was trying to get, no, I don't mean that. I mean, the grocery outlet was trying to sort of get here. And then we had another housing development that we thought, a developer that we thought, man, we're so close to the finish line. And we will look at the reasons that those two failed. The grocery outlet folks particularly, because I had a lot of side conversations with them. And their bottom line was, this does not pencil for us because of the distance that we have to bring all of the materials and our contractors. And so when I think of the reality of something actually happening, to me, just practically speaking by the numbers, the closer that you could stay to the 299 corridor seems like it would bring down cost of transportation significantly rather than trying to delve too far off of that, unless I'm not thinking of routes, say from Humboldt County where supplies could be into maybe the south part of the county. But I just want us to talk practically about the numbers for a second.
I mean, I suppose that's, all of us speculating on how all those costs are, defined and what the variabilities would be in terms of, those various costs for any, huge number of potentially very different types of, developments that could qualify for, benefit from opportunity zone designation. I mean, I think, in terms of, You know, obviously I'm from Hayfork, so maybe I'm partial to Hayfork. So I'll be honest in that regard. But I mean, I think the Hayfork Valley has great development potential. I think South County has, you know, a lot of land with development potential. But then there are, you know, to Supervisor Lutweiler's point, right? Like if we're looking at, it kind of depends what type of development we're looking at. If we're looking at a meat processing plant in Hayfork, you know, as just a conceptual idea versus a significant multifamily development, some of those infrastructure requirements are significantly different. There'd be more benefit to go into an area with an existing, you know, potable water and wastewater treatment district, you know, CSD, like in Lewiston or in Hayfork, versus potentially in South County, where that cost, that piece of it might be cost prohibitive to the developer for a significant multifamily development versus a one-off meat processing plant, and where that could go in, and could that be accommodated with an on-site, you know, waste treatment system. So there's just so much variability there. But agreed, you know, there's going to be some cost and transportation. And I mean, I think one of the most significant limitations is the data, right? And that the data doesn't necessarily support, the data is going to be what developers are going to look at to build their pro forma if we're talking multifamily development. So our, you know, our population data is what it is, I guess, whether it's entirely accurate or not. You know, again, I'll take the opportunity to plug business licenses. That's certainly a place when you look at, you know, census data and ACS data and NAICS data. You know, they're, to me, looking at it, it's clearly off base and does not represent the reality of Trinity County, whether that's a result of informal employment or lack of business licenses or what have you. So again, I apologize that I'm not able to really provide a clear, you know, recommendation for a singular census tract, or should we go from 101 to 200 or 500, and should we support that? So again, that was my best attempt to say, hey, we want all three.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that larger thinking, because I was very much thinking in terms of structures. I didn't think in terms of like your meat packing plant idea, where it's a very different look, and what's there and what's needed are very different. Okay, thank you for that side. Back to your recommendation.
Just one comment. So would they need, doing 3 different letters would give more information on each project that you're considering, thinking about maybe in the future, right? So Hayfork would be, you know, doing the meat processing plant. Would that help them to make a positive decision on a specific area if we did 3 different? Because we're having a very, I don't know.
Yeah, and I wasn't able to garner why they made the specific decision to include 101 as their preliminary, you know, tract from our county. That information, if it's out there, I didn't come across it. I didn't see any methodology or rationale provided by GoBiz or Department of Finance in that regard. So I'm at a loss myself as to how they came up with that as their preliminary designation. I don't know that, you know, even if we crafted, again, not knowing what methodology they're going to employ to make their decision, even if we crafted 3 letters versus 1 letter, would that have any, you know, more weight to it?
As the sender, I would say yes. As the person receiving, I would say just put it all in one, because I don't want to have to hold on to 3 different papers and try to figure out, oh, this is the same. So that's my mindset. Susie, you have?
And quick question for Sean before we go too far down the path of thinking we might want to craft 3 letters. The agenda packet has 1 letter crafted and drafted before them. How would we, from a process standpoint right now, and if I understand correctly, this is due by the end of the month? And we don't have another board meeting before now and the end of the month. So how would we craft 3 letters and get them approval? And what are my minutes going to look like? And kind of all those pieces before, I just want to have all of that factored into your guys' consideration of moving down that path versus just making some modifications to the draft letter that's included in the packet is a little bit more standard to what we have done historically here, and I know how to capture that better.
You can do three, as long as you get clear direction as to how they should be structured and what they should contain. That said, it might be easier at this stage to stick with the one and adjust it, but you can go either way as long as, like I said, as long as it's clear and it's part of the discussion here. Then.
Well, since we have the date situation that we have, I say one letter with
Okay.
advantages briefly.
And I would just agree myself from someone that's reviewing these sort of things, you know what I mean? One letter, I think, is more concise and easier to process.
Anyone have any further comments on this?
No, I think that's a good choice, especially since we have no idea how they come up with an answer to why they picked one instead of the other.
So I do have a few minor edits that I want to just run through and get your approval of
Yes,
if we
you
are
had
going to
mentioned those previously.
go forward with one.
Do you want us to do a share screen and track changes live so we can see them and make sure that I would like that actually, so we can make
Okay,
sure we're
sure.
capturing exactly what Drew's trying to say, and then you guys can see exactly what we're approving, and it makes drafting
Let's
our
do
minutes
that.
a lot easier.
Then we have it on record as well. It can be seen.
And so I did capture already in this that you wanted to address to the governor, not to GOBIZ.
Yes, please. On the second page, under census tract 500, I would propose that we address the conversion of 300 being, now included within 500. So the second sentence, instead of this tract is currently designated, this area is currently designated. Under the as an opportunity zone under the existing Opportunity Zones 1.0 program, and potentially in parentheses, tract ending in 300. But that may or may not be of any real significance, but just for clarity's sake. So this area, and then after Opportunity Zones 1.0 program, in parentheses, census tract, it would be 061050000300. And then on the following page, under the subheading of request for inclusion of all three tracks, I think that could just be changing 500 to 300. But we could bolster, or augment that sentence to say, and which has, per the 2020 census and redesignation of census tracts, but at least just calling it out as 300, I think would be an improvement.
Slide back up to your top page, if you would. Oop, down a little bit. Down, down, down. Oh, sorry, it wasn't your top page. Second one, right there. It's a tract rather than a track. In red is a TRACT. Yeah, yeah.
$300 did go away, but it's still currently until the end of 28. That geographic area qualifies under the 1.0 program. Nope. And then, if we do wish to prioritize, again, I think the place to do that would be in that second to last paragraph, and say, if you're unwilling to accept our request for all 3 census tracts, then we wish to prioritize as such, but it doesn't sound necessarily like there's clear consensus from the board to, or sufficient information to actually come up with prioritization.
I don't think we have enough information to be able to lobby one way or the other for one.
If we,
Uh,
I think we should specify that they can choose one though, right?
Okay.
We don't want them to say, we're not going to accept all 3, so therefore you get 0.
Okay.
Well, and they've given us one, so at least based on the, webinars that I've attended, it doesn't sound like really they're going to be excluding any of these preliminary designations from their final list, but I don't think it hurts to say, we want all 3, but we'll take one.
Sure.
Fair enough.
The other thing that I was reading says that
Just a second. Let the-
And say, and the governor? Because I think this is, again, to my best understanding, Department of Finance is hosting this web application, mapping tool, but I believe that it's still a joint effort between GoBiz and Department of Finance, but it's not perfectly clear to me, to be honest, so.
There you go. That's good.
Comma after go biz.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, now Supervisor Weiler, what do you got?
So one of the things I saw, and Drew, you may have done more homework on this, is that the portal that's out there only allows you to refer to one tract at a time.
Yes, you have to click on the track, and if that's helpful, we can pull up that website once we're
Yeah.
done making
So,
these edits.
but my point is, and I've been trying to go back to the AI that I was working with and ask some questions based on our discussions here, and it's saying, so you could use the same letter that refers to all 3 tracts, but you need to go into the portal for each tract. And so
So we would, yeah, if I'm understanding, we would go and we would submit this letter 3 times for each of the 3 qualifying census tracts.
Correct. Yes.
But to Sean and Supervisor Carpenter Harris's point, if you're on the receiving end of these, even if it showed up 3 times, the fact that it's the same thing 3 times provides clarity and is preferred. Okay.
and again, just back and forth with the chat GPT this time, it says, California does allow a support letter to mention multiple census tracts. So technically you could write one. But California also says the portal comments themselves must address one tract at a time. And therefore, it thinks that 3 letters that just differentiate why this tract a little bit, have some common language about why Trinity County in and of itself should be better represented in this initiative. But here specifically, why this one and why this one and why this one. And again, we could approve this kind of general language that we're kind of going through together. And then I think what County Council was saying is, and then we could give direction to staff and then customize each one based on data available to support that individual census tract and submit with each one through the portal and so on and so forth. And I'd be happy to work with Drew if he wants the help. I provided the information I got over the weekend.
As far as, modifying this current letter into 3 versions, I would say, it could be done simply if we're not trying to dig in and give additional data specific to each census tract. The subject line of the support letter would call out one census tract. The following section where we have all 3 census tracts bolded would have one census tract, or, each of the respective census tracts in 3 different versions. And then on page 2, we would just list the census tract for which each specific comment is being submitted for instead of all three. And I think that that would at least tailor, this this letter to a specific census tract, and we could still keep the request for inclusion of all three tracts, as a subheading on the third page.
Rick's thinking I can.
Well, the
can
other- the
feel the
other-
grinding over here.
Yeah, the other thing I'm seeing is that it's not just the county submitting something. What I'm reading is saying that if other organizations like the chambers, TCDC, any other kind of group that wants to come forward and say, I support this tract for these reasons. And it says, it's not just about volume, so you don't want the same exact letter written by 20 different organizations saying exactly the same thing, but we could give them, from what we provide, we could provide a template and say chambers and TCDC and anybody else that we think would be appropriate to write into that. Here's a way that you could support this by submitting your own thing through the portal. Here's some general stuff, and here's some options of ways that you could customize your specific. But also just feel free to say, why do you think it would be great to have an opportunity zone here? We don't have to formalize that here because we're not approving what they do, but we could provide direction to staff to try to come up with something that we could provide to the public so that those organizations, whomever they might be appropriately interested in, could have something as a template to work from and bolster what we're going to do.
And I think it would be great, and, whether it has the desired effect or not, I guess we'll find out. But, if the Trinity Chamber and all of the individual chambers all came with the message of, we want all of our census tracts designated, that would be pretty fantastic. And we could certainly do outreach, but again, the choice of any individual or individual organization is theirs. And, we give them a template if that's the direction.
Yeah.
And we do, it's the 18th and these are due by the 30th.
Yeah.
So.
We can make it happen.
Okay, Rick's on it,
Yeah.
man.
It's cool.
One moment, just a second. Can I allow additional public comment?
You can.
Okay. We'll allow additional public comment at this time. Go ahead.
This has to be done by
Come here.
This has to be done by the end of the month?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The Trinity County Chambers meeting is Wednesday, and Weaverville's chamber is on Thursday this week.
Oh,
This
okay.
week.
So if you're gonna give it to them, you need to give it to them now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Do you need to open public comment to those online
Oh,
as well?
is there any
Do you-
further public comment online on this matter?
I have no raised hands.
Okay, we'll reclose public comment and return back to staff. Excuse me. Okay, so we need
So
to
y-
give this,
Yeah, yes and amen to the draft letter because no one is going to be able to tackle this. It's daunting. The draft is helpful and the drafts when things like this that I've received will kind of provide everything for you and then in red or whatever, have the bracket that says if you're going to put some specific stuff, it goes here to make it as streamlined and sort of user-friendly as possible.
I'm on it.
Love it.
okay.
I'll get stuff to you.
So I feel like we need to give a comprehensive direction to staff, kind of lined out so that we don't just have a discussion and then say, figure out what we all decided.
Yeah, just one other point too. Do we have authority written into what we're doing here too, to sign and to submit? Okay.
So. So what about a motion to, once we're finalized here, approve, authorize the chair to sign 3 distinct letters that reflect what was discussed today with customization as deemed appropriate by the chair and community development director for each census tract, and to publish for consideration by supporting organizations template that they could use to submit for each of the tracks as well through the public portal.
Perfect.
Perfect. Is everyone on this board in
I think I
agreement
can,
with
I
that
think I can
activity?
get that for you.
Get that
I'll try to get-
encapsulated there.
So we have consensus as it was just stated and it was captured from the board as direction. Everyone is fine. I'm seeing heads and eyes around the house. So
Thank you all.
Did you,
Yeah.
Drew, I'm sorry, because I was a little distracted trying to do this other stuff. Did you feel like you have that? Because we said we're authorizing the chair to sign 3 letters that reflect what we agreed to today. Do you feel like you have everything there that the customization that comes by tract is, we can work out after the fact, but do you think what you need?
I mean, I think so. If what I conveyed is acceptable to the board, as far as, you know, the heading line will change, the specific references to the individual census tracts will get separated into 3 different letters, and we'll still close with essentially the same ask, which is we're asking for all 3.
And am I clear that this also means we are not trying to prioritize?
correct.
Okay, just making sure we're all on board. So then,
And
if you want to talk for a few more minutes, I'll write this down and we can have something formal that I'll read out and we can say that
Vote
we're
on it.
voting on.
I think one thing, if you would like unique and sparkling attributes of Tract 500, I would be more than happy to provide you with sparkling attributes.
Yeah, certainly. If, you know, any of the individual supervisors, I think, you know, have additional information that we might not have, I would gratefully accept
Maybe
it.
just like a couple sentences that
Yeah.
just throw together some unique opportunities that exist in that.
Yeah, and so then I guess my suggestion from a formatting perspective, you know, could be, do we want to create a new subheading, or do we want to just take geographic distribution and economic development, that subheading, maybe turn that into just economic development, and then add our tidbits to each of those census tracts in that, under that subheading, as just a off the top of my head way to keep consistency.
Yeah, I think that seems fine. Just go with the flow. We don't have a lot of time to completely
Yep.
like open it back up and start all over again. So where those items would fit best so that there's we're just joining in on the flow that's already there.
Got it.
This guy's the scribe of the universe right here.
Well, this is exciting. And while he's finished scribing over there, I just think it's important to sort of point out, because of the other conversations we've had earlier today, these are the types of things that this board and this staff are doing to improve economic development in our county. If we look back, not even 10 years, there are differences, and they're good. And seeing the good and leaning into the good with all of our thoughts and comments, I think is a really important thing to do, and I appreciate this work. So thank you.
Okay, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Authorize the chair to sign 3 letters, one for each census tract, that reflect the key points agreed to by supervisors today. Further, authorize the chair and community development director to add census tract specific information for each letter. This approach will not prioritize one tract over another. Further, authorize staff to issue a template for consideration by local regional organizations which might want to support this effort.
Correct. Yes, very good.
Good?
Yes, I agree.
May-
Authorize. Yeah.
Question. Okay, so we've basically just decided that we're gonna turn this one letter into 3 letters.
Yep.
Are we gonna give out 3 templated letters, or are we gonna do a single template for other folks to use? Or are we going to then, you know what I mean? Like, of the 3,
Yeah, the
Are
way,
we going to ask the Trinity Chamber, as an example, to submit 3 comment letters to each of the census tracts if they agree with our request to ask for all 3? Or are we going to give out 3 you follow my question?
yeah, so I've worded it as a template, and the template that chat has already drafted for us leaves a space to say which tract you're supporting and gives them like 10 different options of ways they can personalize it by what's important to them. So it would be a template that they then say, oh, I want this zone, and I'm going to choose these reasons why, and here's my letter. And then they could use the same template to choose the next zone and a different reason. So they could do all 3 of them, they could do one of them, but it would be track specific, which is what it sounds like the portal wants.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay. That works.
And well, so let's, before we go further, so that was a motion, right? And we need a second?
Wasn't this just discuss? Oh, got you. Second.
And so the other thing I would say is then, again, I'll be happy to help you, Chair and Drew, but I think we need to come up with that list of people we really want to reach out to, because I'm sitting here thinking this could be Nortec, it could be SCED, it
Yep.
could be RCRC, it could be all kinds of groups, and we may or may not get them all. And then,
Community Services District.
yeah, the CSDs, it could just be all kinds of groups. So we should give a list that then through staff, which includes in my terminology, our PIO, could help us with some outreach and really try to make this happen. And I think we could probably get there. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? I think we've cleared that. You can call for the vote, please.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Leutwiler.
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan.
Aye.
Supervisor Brownfield.
Aye.
Chairman Carpenter Harris.
Aye. Thank you, sir. We now move to item E2, County Administrative Officer authorize the use of county logo and sign on a letter opposing SB 254 Becker Energy. CAO Hill.
Thank you, Chair. So this item is to request the board's authorization to submit our county logo to be included in what they're calling a NASCAR letter, and that is basically the letter of opposition that is in the staff report with all of those organizations who have chosen to support it. Their county logos will go on the top of it first. And then the signatories at the bottom. The staff report has the proposed letter for you to review. There's basically 3 main reasons why CSAC, RCRC, and the California League of Cities has come out and really, really strongly on our behalfs opposed certain aspects of this SB 254. The first one is opposition because the proposal would limit the damage claims on public property or infrastructure to the depreciated value of an asset that the investor-owned utility would have to be responsible for. The second one is it's proposing to remove emergency response and mutual aid cost as recoverable cost, again, from what the investor-owned utility company would be responsible for if it was determined that it was a utility-caused fire. And then the third one is the proposal is to eliminate property tax loss revenue as a recoverable cost from the investor-owned utility companies. So those are the 3 big items. There has been lots of information pushed out via CSAC, RCRC, and California League of Cities to supervisors directly, to CAOs, to anybody they can get to listen to them, to advocate for some pretty significant changes associated with this bill, because there would be, if it goes through as currently drafted, a potentially significant financial hit to counties, cities, communities, if there was such a wildfire that came through and it was determined that it was utility caused. And this is specifically directed at the investor-owned utility companies, which is different than a publicly owned utility company. So the investor-owned utility companies, big ones like PG&E are what this bill is specifically intended to, or what the opposition letter is intended to oppose.
Do we have any questions from the board? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on this item in the room? Seeing none, do we have any public comment online on this item?
No raised hands.
It will close public comment and I'll ask for a motion.
I move approval.
A second.
I'll second.
Do we have any comments about this from the board? Seeing none, we'll wait for Supervisor Gogan. It's okay. So we've had a motion to support the item as was presented and a second on that. There was no further discussion on this item unless you had any on the utility. No, you're good? Okay. So we'll now call for the vote.
Supervisor Lutwiler,
Aye.
Supervisor Cox,
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan.
Aye.
Supervisor Brownfield,
Aye.
Chairman Carpenter Harris.
Aye. Thank you. We will now move into closed session. Item F1, County Council, Government Code Section 54954.5C, Conference with Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation, Number of Cases 1. Do we have any public comment on this item in the room? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on this item online?
No raised hands.
We have none. We will now close the open session of the August 18th meeting of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors and enter into closed session. Thank you.